Hey, welcome back. My name is DJ. I'm joined by Amalgam here, and we're going to be doing this a set review limited of Green now for Midnight Hunt. Amalgam, why don't you go ahead and kick us off with Rin and 7?
All right, so Renin 7 is a 5 mana Planeswalker, 3 and 2 green, legendary Planeswalker Ren, mythic slot. Starting at 5 loyalty, the +1 is reveal the top 4 cards of your library, put all lands revealed this way into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. 0 is put any number of lands from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. -3 is create a green treefolk creature with reach, and this creature's power and toughness are equal to the number of lands you control. And then 8, return all permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand. You get an emblem with you have no maximum hand size. Mm, I don't actually think this card's that good for limited.
I uh I think I disagree. I think this card's a straight A in limited.
Really?
And so the +1 is going to be really great, particularly in like blue green, the self mill deck, and probably black green too. Just for
Right.
like flashback, disturb, and those type of cards. Plus, black green has the reanimator spell. Um,
Oh, yeah.
the 0, it's no, it doesn't look like anything that crazy. I don't particularly think you'll use this in limited. The -3 is the big one. So this comes down and makes a 5/5 for 5 with reach, and then the 5/5 will just grow from there, and so it protects itself. It goes down to 2 loyalty. You get 2 pluses out of it if it's still on the battlefield. By then you're making like a 7/7. That seems really good to me for 5 mana. And then yeah, the ultimate is a huge card advantage part, but I think I'm evaluating this card in limited kind of on the +1 for the decks that care about putting stuff in their graveyard, but really on the -3. I think the -3 is very strong.
Yeah, I just really thought of it as just a 5 mana 5/5. Like the. I guess that is playable. A 5 mana 5/5 that gets bigger.
Yeah,
So I probably put it at like C minus.
yeah,
I don't really value Planeswalkers too high though in limited.
yeah. I think it's just an average green deck. I think I'm always playing this card because I think the the -3 is really strong, and then the value of getting the +1 um kind of matters because it kind of pumps the 5/5, and then the 0 doesn't matter at all, and the eight's kind of good. If I'm a mill, if I want to put things that aren't lands in my graveyard, I really like the +1. I think if I have a lot of synergies with the +1, where and it's like a weird way of drawing a card because I'm milling something that I could use in my graveyard, I think then it's an A. Because I feel like making a 5/5 and then getting card advantage is going to be enough to win you a game unlimited. And maybe it is just like a C in an average green deck because it is just a 5/5 for 5. But I don't think on in general it's just going to be a 5/5 for 5. I think most of the time it's going to be like 2 7/7s for 5 maybe. That requires a lot of stuff. If your opponent has more creatures than you in turn 5, then negging it, making a 5/5, it's probably still good because it's probably bigger than anything else on the board. But you're just playing a 5/5 for 5. That's not
Right.
particularly good. It does have reach. That's super relevant because there's a lot of flyers. But I think if you feel like your deck can neg 3 this twice, I think that's really hard to lose a game then.
Right.
But yeah, if I care about mill, it's A. And then if I don't particularly want the mill, I think maybe C plus, B minus. I think the neg 3 just has a lot of impact on the board.
Right.
All right, next we have Willow Geist. Cost 1 green. It's a creature, tree folk spirit at rare. 1/1 has trample. When one or more cards leave your graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter on it. And then when it dies, you gain life equal to its power. I I honestly don't know how to evaluate this card. I think this is going to be one of those cards um, that I have to play with and see how the format looks to understand how good it is. Because it doesn't look good to me. Um,
Yeah.
because it's so bad as a late top deck. It's a 1/1 with trample. Obviously, if it's turn one and you can somehow,
Manipulate.
yeah, you can somehow keep getting stuff to leave your graveyard, but I don't think things are going to be leaving your graveyard at that much of a frequency that early in the
Right.
game. I think things are going to be going into your graveyard, but removing them is going to be much harder. I think this is just like a D. I don't even think I want to try to get it to work,
Yeah, this is definitely
or maybe a
not a
F.
card that I'd even consider playing. Because if you just draw it late game, it does nothing.
Yeah, it looks really bad to me.
All right, next we have Unnatural Growth for one colorless and four green. It's an enchantment at a rare. At the beginning of each combat, double the power and toughness of each creature you control till the end of the turn. I think if you can cast this card, you usually will win the game.
Yeah, that's a lot of stats. If you have three two twos and you play this, you have three four fours.
Right.
It is not hard to get two twos. It works pretty well with even like decay tokens because then they're whacking for four. But yeah, I agree. It's gonna be really hard to cast. I think
If you can cast it, I think it'd probably be an A. But I I think this card's probably a C minus.
I agree. If you are a very heavy green deck, I think this is close to A. It seems really hard. Um, I guess if you're behind, it doesn't do much. But if you curve out just naturally, have this on five, I think it's going to be really hard for your opponents to win. And the board stalled. It's a good top deck. If you can cast it, I agree. It's probably going to play like an A card. But I think in general, you're right. It's probably closer to like a C plus, just because it's going to be so hard to cast. Next, we have Turn the Earth. It's a green instant and uncommon. Choose up to three target cards in graveyards. The owners of those cards shuffle them into their libraries. You gain two life. That has flashback from one and a green. This just looks like a sideboard card you might play sometimes.
Yeah, it's not something I'd ever want going into like game one.
Yeah, and my opponents would have to have pretty good like flashback synergies or just really busted flashback cards or disturb cards because this can mess with that those synergies, but it doesn't affect the board. It is pretty cheap though, and you get a little bit of life, and it has flashback, so you can mill it and kind of get a card that way, or just kind of cast it up for three mana. Just get rid of anything and just gain four life if you need it. I think it's probably like a sideboard C.
Yeah, that's probably where I have it.
All right, you get my favorite card for limited in this set.
Yeah, next we have Tovalar's Huntsmaster. It's a rare. It is four and a green, or four green green for a human werewolf. When it enters the battlefield, create two green wolf tokens, two green 2/2 wolf tokens with Daybond. Uh, or it has Daybond, my bad. And then it is a 6/6, and then once it flips, it becomes Tovalar's pack leader. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, create two green wolf creature tokens, and then two and a green target. Another target wolf or werewolf you control fights another target creature you don't control, and it's a 7/7 with Nightbond. I think this card is like an S plus. It's
Yeah,
a, it's green Grave Titan.
yeah, super easy A. I can't imagine ever not first picking this card. If I open it in pack two, I'm really considering if I can move into green. This is so much power and toughness on turn six, and if you get it to flip, you know how are you going to lose that game? Obviously, if your opponent has removal, but if they have removal, you get two twos regardless. No matter what side you actually it enters on, you get two twos, fronted to you. This card's just nuts.
Right.
A plus for me.
Yeah. A plus S tier. It's probably the best first pick card
This
in
is
the set.
this will definitely probably be the rare I'm going to concede to on the spot the most.
Yeah.
Next, we have Tireless Hauler. Four and a green for a creature human werewolf at common. Has vigilance and it's a 4/5 with Daybound. And when it flips, it's a 6/6 with vigilance. This just, looks like the C'est of C's.
Yeah, it's a C.
Never going to be upset with putting this in my deck, but, not going to be jumping for joy. Obviously, if you get it to flip, it's going to, do some damage. Or, something that happens a lot in limited. If you're top decking and your opponent, is flooding, draws a land, plays it, and passes, your werewolves would just flip if they're on their human side. This just flipping because your opponent has nothing to do will close the game out really soon. But that's something that's not going to happen that often.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely a C. And next we have a Timberland guide for 1 and a green, a creature human scout at a common. And when Timberland guide enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on target creature, and he's a 1/1. Uh, yeah, this is another C. It's a card that can be a bear on turn 2, or later put a counter on a flyer or something.
Yeah, yeah. Another C'est of C's. Probably close. I would probably put it closer to C minus because this is probably one of the first cards I cut. When I'm having to make my cuts, but I wouldn't be upset putting it in my deck. Next, we have tapping at the window. 1 and a green sorcery at common. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature from among them, put it into your hand, put the rest into your graveyard, and flash it back for 2 and a green. I'm never really a fan of these style of cards in limited, even with the flashback. Obviously, I will say on every flashback card, you get in your graveyard for free, then sure, just having like a card that could put a different card in your hand that you're not spending 5 mana on or whatever is great. But if I'm not self mill or discard, I don't think I'm going to be putting this card in my deck. It's just too bad if you miss with it. So I'll probably put it probably at like a D, and maybe I'll play it if I can put it in the graveyard.
Yeah, I'd probably C minus to D. It's not really a card I'd be excited about playing.
Or I guess if my deck has like 18 creatures, maybe this is the 23rd card.
Right. All right, next we have Storm the Festival for 3 colorless and 3 green, sorcery at a rare. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may put 2 permanent cards with mana value 5 or less from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom in a random order. And then it has flashback for 7 and 3 green. This is another card that I feel like if you get to cast, you just get like 2 of the better creatures out of your deck. Or usually. Flashback for 10 is expensive though.
Yeah.
But
What really
but
helps this card is it hits everything. You can put
right.
lands if you hit lands. It can put a planeswalker into play. It can put artifacts, enchantments, creatures. So you're never technically missing, but paying 6 mana for this and hitting 2 lands would be pretty bad. But by turn 6, if especially maybe if you're like a ramp deck and you're getting lands out of your deck, hitting a
Right.
couple of creatures probably isn't the worst thing in the world. 5 cards is enough. I think you could reasonably hit them. I haven't done the math on this card, but I think I'm just gonna play it safe and call it like a C plus to a B. But I could see it being just an absolutely absurd card.
Yeah, I'd probably have it at B.
Next, we have Snarling Wolf. 1 mana creature wolf at common. It's a 1/1 and it has 1 and a green. Snarling Wolf gets +2/+2 till end of turn. Activate only once each turn. Yeah, I think this is a 1 drop that's like a C level. I wouldn't be upset putting this card in my deck, but not jumping for joy.
Right, yeah. It is a decent 1 drop, and if you don't have anything to do on 2, it always attacks for 3.
Right.
So
And it's a wolf. That's pretty relevant.
that is relevant, yeah. And next we have Shadow Beast Sighting for 3 and a green, sorcery at a common. Create a 4/4 green beast token, creature token, and then flashback for 6 and a green. I'm not very partial to cards that make token creatures like this instead of just a creature in the 4 drop slot. But having flashback makes it a slightly better. So I'd probably put this at like C plus.
Yeah, I probably have it at like a B to C plus. I I I feel better about this card than you seem to. Um, there's just a lot of inevitability. You cast this on four. Your opponent looks at their board, at their hand. You know, maybe they use a removal spell on the 4/4, but then they know that, you know, in a couple of turns, well, you're getting another 4/4.
Right.
But, you know, it obviously the tokens can get bounced. Uh, maybe they just play a bigger creature. But yeah, I think C plus is probably, or not C plus, B is probably where I would rate this card. All right, next we have Sereth the Viper's Fang, 2 green green legendary human warlock, 3/4 at rare. Other tap creatures you control have Death Touch. Other untapped creatures you control have Hexproof. And then you can pay one generic, tap it, untap target creature or land you control.
Hmm.
This
This
seems like it affects the board enough that I'm probably going to give it like a B minimum, just because it makes everything kind of a headache for your opponent. Um,
right.
and then you could always attack with a really good creature. They go to kill it or something, then you just tap this to untap it, and then it gets hexproof from the other ability. Um, Obviously, really sweet in like Commander, where you can untap like a Gaius Cradle or something,
Right.
but in limited, I think I have it like a B. I think this is gonna affect the board enough that um, you won't regret putting it in your deck.
Yeah, I have this at a B as well. I think in other formats it's going to be pretty good, but here in limited it's pretty decent as well.
Yeah, you know, having your decay tokens attack with Death Touch is a pretty annoying spot to put your opponent in.
It is, yeah. Next we have Rise of Ants for 4 and 2 green. Sorcery to uncommon. Create 2/3/3 insect creature tokens. You gain 2 life and flashback for 6 and 2 green. I like this card a lot. I know I just said that the Shadow Beast sighting was, medium, but it's it's 4 guys for, you know, 6 and 8 mana, or
Which
2 guys, but
mm,
gaining life and making 3/3s is better than making a 2/2.
yeah, I agree. I think this card is very good. I probably have it at like a C plus to a B as well. Probably closer to C plus just because it is a 6 mana spell. But think about like compare this to the Cardinal asset, Hill Giant Herd Gorger. There are
Right.
times you would play that card, your opponent would just kill it, and then like you gained, you know, 3 life or whatever, but they were able to deal with it and keep attacking you. This creates 2 creatures. So if they have a removal spell, you know, you still have a creature lying around. And the same inevitability I talked about earlier. 8 mana is a lot, but it's not unheard of to reach 8 mana. And so turn 6, play this, then a couple of turns later, somehow play it again. I like this card. Next, we have Sideboardiest of Sideboard cards. Return to Nature, 1 in a green, instant at common. Choose 1, destroy target artifact, destroy target enchantment, exile target card from my graveyard. Sideboard C to B. If there's a really good artifact or enchantment your opponent has, you bring this in, and when you blow it up, you feel really good. Um, from what I've seen of the set so far, I don't think this is going to be main deckable in best of one on Arena.
Yeah, I don't. It's kind of hard to evaluate sideboard cards specifically.
Right, yeah. But it's going to be a sideboard card you're going to be happy to pick up for when you need it.
Right. Next we have Primal Adversary for 2 and a green. Creature Wolf, the Mythic slot. Trample. Whenever Primal Adversary enters the battlefield, you may pay 1 and a green any number of times. When when you pay this cost 1 or more times, put that many +1/+1 counters on Primal Adversary, and then up to That many target lands you control become 3/3 wolf creatures with haste that are still are lands, and he's a 4/3. I think this card's awesome.
I do too. The base rate, the floor on this is a 3 mana 4/3 with trample, which is pretty good. Um, I have small things that make this card. It's not going to be as good as it appears. The first one is it does not untap the lands,
Right.
so you have to have a lot of mana to make 2/3/3s plus this and attack with the 3/3s at the same turn. But sometimes if you're trading off a bunch of cards with your opponent, you cast this for 7 mana. You're probably okay with ending the turn with a 4/3 that's untapped and 2/3/3s that are tapped, and they do become wolves, and this is a wolf itself, which is relevant.
Right.
I think
Probably have this at like a C plus,
it,
maybe a B.
yeah, I think it's just gonna be so hard to hate putting this card in your deck because you can't. I have it like B to B plus, which is always gonna be good. I think maybe not always, but the baseline for a 3 mana 4/3 with trample is enticing. So I'm gonna go with a B. Next card we have another sideboardiest of sideboard cards. Plummet, 1 and a green, instant at a common. Destroy target creature with flying. Another sideboard B. When you really need it and you have it, it's gonna feel really, really good. Don't be tricked into playing this in best of one. I always lose to people playing in best of one, but it's not good main deck if unless there's a really, really large number of flyers, and you could probably find some other better removal spell.
Right. Next we have, is that Pestilent Wolf?
Pestilent,
Yep.
yep.
For 1 and a green, he's a 2/2, and then for wolf at common, and then for 2 and a green, he gains Death Touch until the end of the turn. This is a playable bear.
Yeah, yeah, pretty solid C. Wouldn't wouldn't be disappointed putting it in my deck. Next we have Path to the Festival. 2 and a green for a sorcery at common. Search your library for a basic land card. Put that card onto the battlefield tapped. Then shuffle. Then, if there are 3 or more basic land types among lands you control, scry one, and it has flashback for 4 and a green.
I don't know how I feel about cards like this. And Strixhaven, the one we had, was really good because it learned.
Yeah,
But looking at other formats, I'm not very impressed by cards like this.
yeah, I think I have it like a D. When I'm wanting to have fun and play some 4 color abomination, I'll probably put it in my deck. But I also wouldn't be surprised if there was some green base 3 color deck that was decent and just really wanted to pick these up. But I think in general, you'd just be better off playing, any 3 drop instead of this.
Yeah.
Or I guess if you can, now, even if you can just get this in your graveyard for free, I still really don't like it.
All right. Next we have Outland Liberator for 1 and a green. They are a creature human werewolf for at uncommon. For one, sack Outland Liberator, destroy target artifact or enchantment with Daybound, and it's a 2/2. And then the flip side is Frenzied Trapbreaker, creature a werewolf. Uh, one to sack it and then destroy target artifact or enchantment. But whenever it attacks, you can destroy target artifact or enchantment defending player controls for 3/3. This is an okay card. It's it becomes a 3/3 for two, but it's it's kind of hard to say if it's a sideboard card because of its effect.
Yeah, I wouldn't classify this as a sideboard card. Just a 2 mana werewolf you're gonna play, and sometimes you're gonna get some extra utility out of it. I'd probably put it at a C. Next we
Yeah,
have. Oh, sorry. Did you have something else to say?
I was just gonna say I rated it a C as well.
Okay. Yep. Sorry. Mine are the old ways. One in a green instant at common. Target creature gets +2/+2 till end of turn. Then it has Coven. Draw a card. This is still, like a C to C minus level card, but having a combat trick that you can sometimes draw a card off of is a pretty big bonus. Probably gonna always try to play one in my green decks if I can.
Yeah, I agree. Uh, I definitely have it at a C. I don't really like combat tricks too much unless I'm playing like 19 creatures just that
Mm-hmm.
are like low to the ground.
Right.
But having a combat trick that does draw a card is really nice. Next, we have Howl of the Hunt, 2 and a green, aura, enchantment aura at a common or flash enchant creature. When it Howl of the Hunt enters the battlefield, enchanted creature is a if the enchanted creature is a wolf or a werewolf, untap that creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and has vigilance. Uh, I like this card a lot. It's it is another combat trick, but if you're playing werewolves, which there are a lot of, as we've seen,
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty decent. And then giving something +2/+2 and vigilance at instant speed is pretty nice.
I agree. This has the same risks that all auras have, but it also has the risks that combat tricks have, and that's if you play it on your own turn, your opponent could blow you out with removal. But if you have werewolves and wolves, you kind of get to put them to the test and play it on a creature during their turn. And then if they use a removal spell on it, well, maybe they're not adding another creature to the board. Also, with the existence of Nightbound, you're gonna want effects that you can not spend mana on your turn and just ship it to your opponent so your stuff flips. I think this is a pretty good one.
Yeah, I agree.
Probably give it probably a C minus.
Yeah, probably C minus as well.
Next we have Hound Tamer, 2 and a green, creature werewolf at uncommon, 3/3. Has trample, and then it has 3 and a green, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Has Daybound, and it flips into Untamed Pup. It's a 4/4 with trample. Other wolves and werewolves you control have trample. And then it has the same ability of 3 and a green, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, and has Nightbound.
I think this is one of those key uncommons that you're going to want to first pick. Like, I think this card is very strong.
I think I'm lower on it than that. I think I have it on like a C level, but it is pretty good. 3 mana 3/3 trample is just perfectly fine. And when you have some mana laying around, being able to put counters and stuff is good. And it does play into what I just said about Howl the Hunt. This is a great card to just ship the turn to your opponent, let it flip, and then start putting counters on stuff. What would you rate it at?
Probably, I think I'd probably rate this a B plus, maybe A. I like, I really like effects like this. I think +1/+1 counters are some of the strongest resources in limited,
Mm-hmm.
and for you get to play it as a 3 mana 3/3, and it flipping is pretty strong. And it doesn't have the stipulation of just wolves or werewolves. So you can put the counter on anything.
Mm-hmm.
So probably B plus.
Okay. I'm lower on it than you, but I definitely agree with everything that you said.
All right. Next we have Harvest Tide Century for 1 and a green to 3/1 human warrior at common. With Coven, if you have 3 or more creatures with different power, uh, it cannot be blocked by creatures with 2 power or less. I probably have this at a C. It's I don't know how I feel about 3/1s unlimited for 2. They're good at if you're playing like an aggressive strategy,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah, I agree. I have it.
having one
Go ahead.
having one toughness tends to matter a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I have it like C minus. If you're an aggressive deck, this is gonna be just okay. I don't think the ability is gonna be that relevant. By the time you have 3 or more creatures, your opponent probably has a 3 power creature in play. And then, of course, if your opponent plays one of their own, the ability really doesn't matter at all. But, if you're an aggressive deck, you're going to want creatures like this. And then I probably would put this card in my deck if I wasn't being aggressive. But I think in the aggressive decks, it'll probably be around a C minus level.
Right.
Next, we have Eccentric Farmer, 2 and a green human peasant at common. It's a 2/3, and when it enters the battlefield, you mill 3 cards. Then you may return a land from your graveyard to your hand. Yeah, yeah. This seems like a bread and butter card for the self mill deck. Make sure you hit your fourth land drop. Not make sure, but helps you hit your fourth land drop. Puts cards in your graveyard you want there. Yeah, probably still like a C, but definitely a card when you're self mill you're gonna want.
I'm also gonna let you do this next one.
Okay. Next we have Duel for Dominance. 1 a green instant at common. Choose target creature you control and target creature you don't control. If you control 3 creatures or more with different powers, so Coven, put a +1/+1 counter on the chosen creature you control. Then the chosen creatures fight each other. And they deal damage equal to their power to each other. This is a fight that will. So this card will always fight. There is a period, so you will always choose 2 creatures, and there's a period after the Coven text, so you will always fight. But if you do have Coven, your creature gets a little bit bigger. Um, this is probably fine. Um, it depends how easy it is to get Coven. I kind of think it's going to be easier than it seems.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
it's probably like a C to C plus. It's a fight spell. It's going to be a removal spell that if you don't have removal, you're going to pick it up, and then if you have enough creatures, this is going to be pretty good. It is a 2 mana instant fight spell as well.
Yes. I think it's probably a C plus. I would have butchered this card
There's a
reading
lot of
it.
words. There is a lot of words.
But I do think this card's super good, and I agree with you, DJ. I think Coven is going to be way easier to trigger than we expect. Um, just like looking at my draft games for the past few days, I've always got different power creatures. So,
Right.
all right, next we have Dryad's Revival for 2 and a green sorcery to uncommon. Return target card from your graveyard to your hand, and then flashback for 4 and a green. Um, Once again, I'm not really a fan of regrowth unless I'm doing some like crazy 5 color, 4 color shenanigans. Um, Having flashback is pretty nice for a regrowth, but um, I'd probably put this card at a C. Like I said, I'm not too big on regrowth.
Yeah, I probably have it at C minus. If you're a long grindy deck, you'll be happy to have a copy of this. It's a 2 for 1 in a long game. That's exactly what those kind of decks are looking for. But I agree. I'm not going to put this in all my decks, but I do think it can do a decent amount of work in some decks. Next, we have Defend the Celestis. 2 green instant and uncommon. Distribute 3 +1/+1 counters among 1, 2, or 3 target creatures you control. So I think the word in this sentence that makes this card a little bit better than it might look is or. Because if I read that correctly, that means you could just put 3 counters on one thing,
Right.
uh, and then or 2 things or 3 things. It is a 4 mana spell. It is an instant. It's gonna be a combat trick most of the time. Sometimes it's gonna save some of your creatures from damage removal, but it's a combat trick where the buffs will stay around. So I probably still have it like a C. Um, it might be one of the first cards I cut because it is kind of expensive, but I wouldn't be, embarrassed to cast this card.
Right. Next we have is that I'm having trouble reading this. Death Bonnet Sprout for 1 and a green. It's a
Mm-hmm.
creature fungus at uncommon. At the beginning of your upkeep, mill a card, and then if there are 3 or more creature cards in your graveyard, transform Death Bonnet Sprout. It is a 1/1, and then it transforms into Death Bonnet Hulk for a creature fungus horde 3/3. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you may exile a card from a graveyard. If a creature is exiled this way, put a +1/+1 counter on Death Bonnet Hulk.
Hulk smash.
This is definitely one of those cards like um, what is it? Willow Geist that I am kind of underwhelmed by. Um, this one is slightly better than Willow Geist, but a lot of the time, like when you're if you draw it late, it's gonna feel really bad.
Mm-hmm.
I probably have this at D as well.
Yeah, I think I have it at like the D plus to C minus range. Uh, this is gonna be far easier to trigger than Willow Geist, I think. It kind of helps you in of itself. Yeah, it goes in the self mill deck. I think it's gonna be easier to trigger. It could be harder to trigger. I think what's gonna determine whether or not this card is gonna be good in your deck is how quickly can you get three or more creatures into your graveyard. Are you thinking like turn three you can have a 3/3 that can get a little bit bigger? Because you can eat the creatures that you did mill, but I think there's going to be a little bit of tension because the self mill decks want to put like disturb creatures into their graveyard. Uh,
Right.
yeah, it's probably like a D plus. I feel like maybe it could be better than that, but I think with there being so many conditions and it not being likely, it's kind of like spoiler, I guess, but it's sort of like a delver of secrets, and that
Whoa.
if you can flip it earlier, it's going to be really, really good. But if you're flipping it on turn five, it's not going to be as
Right.
good as you hope. Delver obviously is a little bit better because it will flip into a flyer, but this is how it kind of reads to me: is you get this flipped on turn three, maybe it does some work. Uh, I don't know if you can flip it on turn two, but I'm sure there's probably some nut draw you can do because this is will mill a card for you, and maybe if there's some 2 mana mill spell that could help. But yeah, D plus for me. Next we have Dawn Heart Rejuvenator. 3 and a green for a human warlock at common. It's a 2/4. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 3 life, and then it taps to add a mana of any color. Yeah, this is a C plus. I'm gonna be happy to put this in my deck.
Yeah, I have it as C+. Usually, we had a we had one recently that was a 2/4 for 4 colorless that did this, but it didn't gain you 3 life.
Mm-hmm.
And I would still find myself playing that card occasionally. So I probably have this at a C+ as well. Alright, next we have Dawnheart Mentor for 2 and a green. It is a human warlock at uncommon. It is 0/4. When Dawnheart Mentor enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white human creature token, and then with Coven, for 6 and a green, target creature you control gets +3/+3 and trample until the end of the turn. I think this card is fine. It gives you 2 powers for Coven for 3 mana.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the activated ability is kind of expensive, so I don't know how good it's going to feel in your deck.
Right.
So I probably have this at like a C- to C.
I feel like if you are the token deck, this is gonna be like a C plus. Like you said, it's 2/3 of the way to Coven, and all you have to do to have Coven on turn three is to just play a 2 drop. That's a 2 mana, 2/1 or 2/2. And then it's a human. It makes another human. It can target itself with this ability. The ability can be played at instant speed. We got to note these things now with all these restrictions that are going around. But yeah, C level card, but probably a card you're going to be okay with. I love this next card. Contortionist Troop. X green for a human at uncommon. It's a 0/0 and enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters. And then it has Coven at the beginning of your end step. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. This seems probably like a C plus. and it's gonna be most of the time it's gonna be the power you need to hit Coven, and it's gonna help you maintain Coven, and
Yes.
then it's it's a 3 mana 2/2 that can maybe help you get Coven, and then late game it's like a 7 mana 6/6 or whatever. It's nothing crazy, but that versatility is important, so it's probably like a C for me.
Yeah, I probably have it as C as well. All right. Next, we have Consuming Blob for 3 and double green, a creature ooze at mythic slot, and Consuming Blob's power is equal to the number of card types among cards in your graveyard, and its toughness is equal to that number plus 1. At the beginning of your end step, create a green creature ooze with this power uh, is equal to the number of cards in your graveyard, and then it is toughness is equal to that number plus 1. Uh, I think this card's really strong, and especially in the self mill deck that we've been talking about.
Hmm.
Uh, you have 3 or 4 different card types: creature, instant, sorcery, and land. This is 5 mana, make 2/4/5s. So
Yeah, this is a Goyf that only looks at your graveyard that can spit out another Tarmogoyf. Um, it's probably like a B plus to an A. I feel like if you put this card in your deck, you're putting it in your deck because you're going to be able to put a bunch of creatures or card types in your graveyard.
right,
If you can't, though, I probably.
yeah, it's definitely valued much lower if you can't.
I mean, I don't know. Like, you trade off a creature, you cast a sorcery, maybe cast an instant. 5 mana for 2/3/4s isn't a bad deal. But it
No,
is it is trigger at your end step, so if your opponent kills it in your second main, you don't get a token. So I guess that's worth mentioning. Next we have Clear
yeah.
Shot. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, that's fine.
What did you rate it?
Uh, B plus.
B plus. Okay. Next we have Clear Shot. 2 and a green, instant and uncommon. Target creature you control gets +1/+1 until end of turn. It deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. So this is a bite and not a fight. Uh, this card is a reprint. This card's probably C plus or C to C plus. It's a bite spell. It's gonna make you win combats. It's gonna kill a creature that hopefully you really want to kill. And 3 mana is cheap enough that it's reasonably flexible.
Yeah, I agree. Probably C plus. I like I like I like cards like this that are instant speed
Mm-hmm.
removal, especially like in green. So next we have Candlelit Cavalry for 4 and a green. It's a human knight at or creature human knight at common. It's a 5/5 and Coven. If you have Coven, it gains trampled. This is just a 5 mana 5/5. It's a C. It's a decent card.
Yep, it's gonna be a curve filler. It's gonna be some late game stuff for you to play. I agree. It's a C. Sometimes it'll have trample. It's pretty cool. Next we have Burly Breaker. 3 green, human werewolf and uncommon. It's a 6/5, so a 6/5 for 5. It has Ward 1, it has Daybound, and it flips into Dire Strain Demolisher. Werewolf uncommon, Ward 3, and it's a 8/7.
Yeah, 5 mana 8/7 with Ward 3 is really strong.
Yeah. If I'm in a 6/5 with Ward 1 is pretty good too. It's probably like a C plus, right?
Yeah, C plus maybe B minus.
This is
This is
just
this is a really strong uncommon.
this is gonna be a nightmare. Like your opponent plays this on turn 5 and you just go, oh no.
Luckily, it does not have trample.
Yeah, luckily.
All right, next we have Broodweaver. It's 3 and a green for a creature spider at uncommon. A 2/4 with reach, and when Broodweaver dies, create a 1/2 green spider creature token with reach. I think this card's pretty nice.
Yeah. Still Penumbra Spider, but that card is extremely obnoxious. So I like this version that kind of makes a smaller one. I really like creatures that give you value by dying in the smaller creatures. They're always a little bit better than they seem, but they're never to the level of like a penumbra spider.
Right.
I give this probably C plus. I'll say C plus. I really like these types of cards. What do you give
I
it?
do too. Probably C. Yeah.
Okay. Next we have Briar Bridge Tracker that almost tripped me up a lot. 3 and a green for a human scout. Not three. 2 and a green for a human scout at rare. It's a 2/3. Has vigilance. When it enters the battlefield, investigate, and as long as you control a token, it gets +2/+0. So when it enters the battlefield, it's a 3 mana 4/3 with vigilance. It's pretty good. Gives you a clue token. If you don't know what a clue token is, create a colorless artifact clue token. You can sack it for 2 generic mana and draw a card. This is probably just like a B, just like
Yeah, I think
a
this is
really,
a B.
really decent card. It does say as long as you control a token, so it's gonna be really good in the tokens deck.
Right. Yeah, I like this card. Next we have Bramble Armor for it is a artifact equipment for 1 and a green at common. When Bramble Armor enters the battlefield, attach it to a creature you control. Equipped creature gets +2/+1, and then you can re-equip it for 4 mana. Um, this is an okay card. It's not something I would want to put in my deck specifically. Um,
Yeah, I
but
go ahead.
I'm kind of lower on these a lot of these equipments that enter the battlefield and attach to something. Because like that creature dies, they're usually so expensive to re-equip.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's probably like a D plus C minus level card. I know I always give 2 grades, but the pluses and minuses don't actually hold that much weight. If you're aggressive, I wouldn't be dismissive of putting this into your deck. It attaches right to a creature. You can start getting in with it. Um, yeah, it's the re-equip is expensive, and that's the really important card when you look at equipment, or a part when you look at equipment is how much does it cost to re-equip. But 2 mana or 2+2+1, that's enough to like kind of put you winning on the battlefield, and then eventually, if your opponent kills whatever creature it's attached to, sometimes you could re-equip it. It's a decent card for the daybound nightbound stuff. If you want it to become night, you could just equip and pass, have your stuff flip. But I think it's probably like a D plus. Yeah, probably a D plus. I'm not saying I will never play this card, but I'm not gonna try to play it.
Right.
Next we have Bounding Wolf. 2 and a green for a wolf at common. Has flash, reach, and it's a 3/2. Looks like a C to me. It's a wolf. It's relevant. It's hilarious art. That doesn't really impact the grade, but it has reach, it has flash. It's a great card to just
Yeah,
pass the turn.
especially I like this card with flash a lot because it makes the nightbound stuff
Mm-hmm.
better. So probably C.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, next we have Birdenmire, a for 2 and a green creature, human, archer, werewolf at common. With it's a 1/4 with reach and daybond. Uh, and then it flips into Wing Shredder, which has reach. It's a 3/5 and it has nightbound. It's an okay card. It becoming a 3/5 with reach is kind of important a lot of the times against a lot of the flyers I've seen in this format. So I'd probably put it as C.
Yep, I agree. C. It's a 3 drop. If you need a 3 drop, a 1/4 is hard to attack through, and then if you can flip it, a 3/5 is even harder to attack through. All right, our last green card is a really good one. I like this card a lot. Augur of Autumn. 1 green for a human druid at rare. It's a 2/3. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may play lands from the top of your library, and then if you have Coven, you can cast creatures from the top of your library.
I like this card.
Yeah, it's probably like a B minus. Like you're gonna get some good value out of it. It's a 2/3. It's gonna, you play it on turn three. It's gonna halt your opponent's 2/2s attacking. Um, yeah, it's just a good amount of advantage. If you can trigger the Coven ability, then you really are kind of having your cake and eating it too. Especially if you get to just go like land creature creature or something like that.
Right.
And with it being a 2/3, it's pretty likely you're gonna have Coven with it a decent amount of the time.
I agree.